Since you're an engineer, have you always been interested in physics and math?
Yeah, sure have been. I always enjoyed math, and then around grade 10 or 9, you start learning physics, and that really got me excited.
Work life and your fun.
Well, you just make sure that you always make sure that you take time to enjoy yourself and do the things that you're passionate about, no matter how old you get, or you know what I mean? Always.
What's the triple bottom line?
So most, do you know what the bottom line is? Most companies talk about the bottom line, and that's profit. How well is your company doing? How much money are they profiting? Whereas the triple bottom line is 3 things. It's people, planet, and profit. So you're not just focused on profit, you're also focused on improving the planet and doing good things for people. Yeah.
How do you have time to hold up an entire company while still having time for all these breaks you have?
Well, I can't say that I hold up the entire company. I'm an employee, and I have great bosses, and I have great staff that work for me. So it's a team. Can I say one thing on that too? One of the reasons why I don't own a company of 15 people is because it takes a lot of time, and I want to have time to do other fun things too, not just work. We make a building efficient by looking at the lighting and the heating and ventilation and air conditioning and water consumption. And so there's computers that usually, in most large buildings, there's computers that are programmed to control all those things. And so we go in and reprogram them to be really energy efficient. So when we walk away, we leave a program that's running the building in an efficient way. We also use energy monitoring to go back a year later and see how the building is reacting. So we have real-time energy use every 15 minutes for, all the time. We have a lot of really cool tools. Yeah.
What was the biggest building you were part of?
Well, right now I'm working on the Royal Inland Hospital in Kamloops, and it's the way hospitals get developed is the community's small, so it's a smaller building, and then as the community builds, you add on buildings for more hospital capacity. So this building in Kamloops it's massive. It's like a million square feet or something. It's huge. That might be wrong, but it sounds cool. Yeah.
What type of things do you work on? Do you work on like engines or like also a lot of other things you're working on?
Well, with my work, I work on the systems in this building that are keeping us comfortable right now. In my own part-time, or in my own spare time, I work on cars. I like to work on motorcycles. I have a motorcycle that I fix up, and I have cars that I have a car that I fix up, and I also do a mountain bike and road bike, and so these are all mechanical systems that are spinning and creating power. So, yeah.
What is the longest operation you've been in?
The longest operation. What do you mean by operation?
Like the longest job.
Oh, longest job?
Yeah.
Well, I like to say I've been doing engineering since I was about 19 when I started university. It's all kind of the same thing. But I've been working for this company now for about 3.5 years. It's probably the longest. Yeah?
When you're building the buildings themselves, like putting up foundations and stuff, how do you be energy conservative?
Well, I don't typically get involved in that part of the work, but have you ever heard of the LEED building, L-E-E-D? They set standards as to what the best, most currently efficient and environmentally friendly ways to build are. So there's new standards that explain how to build a building, all the foundations and that, using local materials, less toxic materials, that kind of thing. Yes?
How long did you go to university for?
I did a 4-year engineering degree, so that's a Bachelor of Engineering. And then after that, I did a year of ski bumming, right, because balance is important, so I went skiing for a year. And then I did a 2-year master's. So a total of 6 years, which was a lot of fun. Yeah.
What's the biggest building you've ever built?
I have not built a building before.
What do you say would be the best source of renewable energy?
The best source? What do you mean by best?
Well, ones that's not going to pollute the environment or something like that.
Well, in my opinion, and most people's opinion, the two most promising renewable energy sources are wind and solar.
Why is that?
There's a fair amount of resource available, and it's relatively cost effective.
What's one of the most successful things that you've done during your work?
Well, recently we just saved, at UVic down the street, we've been doing a lot of work with them, and I just saved my first 1,000,000 kilowatt hours, so 1,000,000 units of electricity, and I forget how many greenhouse gases it is, but it's crazy. We saved a lot of gas, natural gas as well, and so it's about $200,000 of energy in 1 year, and like we were talking about earlier, we're setting that up to happen every single year. So it's saving a lot of energy. Yeah.
Aren't solar panels non-renewable because they are made from many non-renewable resources?
You have a really good point, and that's there's no free lunch. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Why hasn't solar energy taken off in BC?
Why hasn't it? Well, it's been progressively growing. BC has a lot of hydropower, so a lot of large dams that we use to produce our power. So we have a cheap, abundant source of energy here in BC, so that's probably one of the key reasons. Areas that have less cheap and fossil fuel based energy generation have adopted solar more frequently. Anybody? Yeah.
What energy source do you believe in, like wind power stuff?
Okay, well, I used to work in tidal energy, so we were working to extract energy from the tides coming in and out. And so to answer your question, you can either choose wind or choose solar or choose tidal or choose one of the many options out there for renewable energy. But what I did is I said, I don't want to gamble on either one of those being successful. I don't want to put all my energy into developing a career into one of those fields. Instead, I've gotten involved in energy conservation, which means rather than trying to generate energy really cleanly, let's try and just reduce as much as possible how much we're using. And my thought is that I can't predict which one is going to be the best in the future, but I know for a fact we're going to have to use less energy in the future. Yes?
Can you give us some suggestions of ways that we can conserve energy within our school or our homes? Like ideas that we could take with us when we walk out of this room an hour from now?
Sure. Probably the number one is turn the heat off when you don't need it. Heating is a huge source of energy. People often talk about turning the lights on and off, but that's actually quite small compared to the amount of energy used to heat a space. Yeah?
Does solar power have any deficits?
Any deficits? What do you mean by that?
Like, does it have any disadvantages?
Disadvantages? Well, your friend talked about a few of them. They do take a lot of resources that have to be mined, a lot of materials that come from large mines, and other than that, it's a pretty good source of energy. There's different ways of using solar energy too.
But what happens when it's night?
You don't get power.
So how do people run power at nighttime?
Well, with solar, you'd have to use batteries, so you store energy. Batteries take a lot of materials to build too, right? So that has to be factored in as well. Yeah.
How much power does the average panel make?
How much power does the average what make?
Solar panel make.
It's totally a function of how big the panel is. The larger the panel, the more energy you're getting. Yes.
How do you get people to care about the church's bottom line?
How do you get people?
How do you get people to care? How do you convince them?
Probably living or by example. Yeah.
What grade of silicon is used in solar panels?
I don't know. Google it. Yeah.
Where do they find the silicon that's used in solar panels?
In the ground.
Like anywhere specific in countries?
I'm not sure. I'm by no means a solar energy expert, but I urge you to look into it, because and I also urge you to think about getting into that industry as you get older, because there's huge opportunity. So if it's something that interests you, start learning about it. Convince your parents to put a panel on the roof.
We have time for one more question for Justin. One last
You've
question.
asked a couple questions. Is there anyone else who hasn't asked a question they'd like to ask? Anyone who's really shy and... Okay, shoot.
How would you be better conservative in like an apartment where you don't really have control over the heating?
Sorry, can you ask the question one more time?
How would you be energy conservative in an apartment where you don't have control over the heating?
Tell your landlord that you want control over your heating.
Okay, aside from that,
Turn your lights off.
On
Try and
that-
use less water. Have a 5-minute shower instead of 10-minute shower.
There we are. Justin, thank you very much.
All right, thanks, guys.